How much nitrogen should you apply to oats? Well, when we polled farmers, they said that they put down no more than 60 pounds of nitrogen per acre. They say if they put down more than that, the crop is going to lodge, they're going to have low test weights, and the maturity is going to go long. Well, those are all valid concerns, especially if you're seeding the oats late. Early research by Bill May suggested that 38 to 71 pounds of nitrogen was usually sufficient, especially if you were seeding late. If you were seeding late, 38 pounds was the maximum you should be putting down. These rates felt kind of low to me based on the results we had at the research farm here in Yorkton. We were part of a large study led by Bill May with Agriculture Canada from 2014 to 2016, and the participants included Yorkton, Indian Head, Melfort, and Redvers. There were 4 varietal comparisons in each site year, with Stride always being the check variety. However, varieties that were compared against Stride differed between locations. This was done to try and screen a large number of varieties without making the trials ridiculously large at any one site. The study was conducted at 3 sites for 3 years and 1 site for 2. In total, we have 44 comparisons. Out of those, there were 22 cases where oat yield responded to 107 pounds of nitrogen per acre. There were 6 instances where 71 pounds of nitrogen was enough, and 16 occasions where 53 pounds of nitrogen were required. In 18 situations, 107 pounds of nitrogen per acre resulted in a discount based on test weight, and in 2 instances, the oats would have been rejected. So overall, reduction in test weight wasn't really a big issue in this study. Soil moisture conditions were pretty good over the course of this study, even during flowering, which may have helped to maintain adequate test weights. However, we did notice that relative to Stride, Summit maintained higher test weights than CS Camden. We have also made a number of direct comparisons between Summit and Camden since then, and Summit frequently maintains higher test weights than Camden. Now, here's Heather to show you some of last year's results.
Here is some data from last year that shows a fairly typical response of Summit to added nitrogen at the Yorkton Research Farm. The yield response is in blue and the test weight response is in orange. You can see yield is quite responsive to added nitrogen. Many of the high rates of nitrogen would result in discounts based on test weights, but not rejection. At grain millers, discounts begin at 245 grams per half a liter, and rejection occurs if test weights fall below 230 grams per half a liter. Now watch as we switch to Camden. The yield curve is similar, but the test weight curve is low. Camden is being discounted at 40 pounds of nitrogen per acre and rejected at N rates of 107 pounds of nitrogen per acre and above.
So 107 pounds of nitrogen per acre was most economical for Summit, and 71 pounds of nitrogen per acre were most economical for CS Camden, because higher rates of nitrogen ended up in rejection for Camden. If test weights were not an issue, the most economical rate of nitrogen would have been 143 pounds of nitrogen per acre for both of them. So there's the rub. Oats may frequently respond yield-wise to higher rates of nitrogen than are currently recommended, but it is often better to hold back to ensure you don't blow it on the test weight side. If you push test weights down into the discount range, it's not a big deal until you push them into the rejection level. You may be saying, but Mike, I don't think your results match my farm. And you're probably right. Results can vary between sites. We had 2 sites near Yorkton in the same year with the same levels of soil N seeded within 10 days of each other and only a few miles apart, and they had very different test weight results. At one site, test weight never became an issue at nitrogen rates up to 107 pounds of nitrogen per acre. In contrast, increasing nitrogen rates to 107 pounds per acre at the other site resulted in discounts for Summit and outright rejection for CS Camden. The results from one side of our farm weren't consistent with the results from the other. What was consistent is that there was less risk of rejection based on test weights for Summit versus CS Camden when nitrogen rates became high.
So it's difficult to say exactly how much nitrogen should be applied. For the most part, 71 pounds of nitrogen per acre should be fairly safe and should come close to maximizing your returns. Choosing Summit over CS Camden should reduce your risk on discounts and rejections based on test weight, as long as lodging is not an issue, as lodging resistance for Summit is somewhat less compared to CS Camden. In our studies, lodging was not a significant concern.
It's been pretty dry this year. So the oats, well, they're not very tall. I don't think lodging's going to be much of an issue this year.
This year, we are determining the yield and test weight response of CS Camden, Summit, CDC Ruffian, CDC Minstrel, and Leggett to increasing rates of nitrogen. These varieties are all on the grain miller's recommended list, and we would like to compare the test weight stability of these varieties head to head. Again, we'd like to thank Adopt for their financial support. This has been a virtual stop at the Yorkton Research Farm, which is a collaborative effort between Parkland College and the East Central Research Foundation.